Hi everyone, we're on day 3 of our devotional and we're reading from Ruth chapter 1 verses 1 to 2. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech, his wife's name was Naomi, and the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem, Judah, and they went to Moab and lived there. Christmas is often portrayed as a time of feasting, platefuls of mince pies and chocolate supplies in every room, and turkey with all the trimmings. The beginning of Ruth, therefore, feels like quite a gear change. There was a famine in the land. But if we linger here, we'll see this is an opening of importance and even refreshing word for us. Land here refers to Israel and Judah, the place of blessing that God has promised to Abraham and his descendants. So why was there a famine? Well, we need to read between the lines here. We saw yesterday that God's people were in a downward spiral of disobedience and idolatry. But the news of a famine is further evidence of things that have gone awry spiritually. The Old Testament law included clear consequences of God's people turned away to false gods. Significantly, one of these consequences was famine. In other words, this national widespread hunger should have been a warning light flashing on Israel's dashboard. It meant all was not well with their relationship with God. And like all warning lights, it was meant to evoke a response. Now we're introduced to the people in this story. It's notable that the very first details given are not their names, characters, or their occupations. Instead, it's where they're from, Bethlehem, and where they're going, Moab. To put it another way, we're told the response to the famine, and despite first impressions, these locations reveal a particularly unwise response. Firstly, Bethlehem was part of God's promised land, and its name literally meant house of bread. But Moab, on the other hand, was one of the long-standing enemies of God's people. The first readers of this story would have therefore raised their eyebrows and said, "You're going where? To Moab?" Both places are then repeated for emphasis in verse 2, sandwiching the family names together. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in Judah, and they went to Moab and lived there. Now we might think, aren't they just doing what anyone would have done in that situation? But remember that this was no ordinary famine. It was a God-given warning light urging God's people to turn to Him in repentance. It certainly wasn't an invitation to flee further away. But isn't this what we do? Essentially, Elimelech and Naomi's actions are just one little example of how we respond when confronted with the reality of a fractured relationship with God. When faced with our brokenness and depravity, it's all too easy to turn away. All this might not seem very Christmassy, but traditionally, Advent is understood as an opportunity to face up to the darkness in order to appreciate the light. Maybe our culture's desire to bring Christmas in early is symptomatic of trying to escape the reality of our brokenness. Yet no one can escape reality for long. In a world that aches with sin, pretending everything is endless cheer is both deceptive and exhausting.